they've watched this thing and they know it's bad, but they can't quite put their finger on why it's bad. So they want somebody to basically explain or give them reasons to confirm why it's bad. So they watch it for validation.
Well,
Just
hello
do it.
everyone, and welcome to One Story Building, where stories are always on the way. Today's guest is video producer, streamer, and Ryan Johnson. It is CJ from Cynical Reviews. Welcome to One Story Building.
Hello. We don't talk about the Ryan Johnson thing. There's a legal dispute I'm involved in. So
Never to be mentioned
it's
again, because I
never
can't
mentioned
think of any
again.
more
Yeah.
jokes. Moving on.
Get back to me, Dad.
Your excuse me, your
Yeah.
YouTube channel is full of critiques of not just crappy Netflix shows, but just
Hmm.
terrible things in general, like talking about the dangers of raw water and people taking
Mm.
the Tide Pod challenge. That's sort of how your YouTube channel started out. You just saying this sucks. Let's talk about it. You truly are cynical about the whole world itself. But let's go back to the very beginning. What was your motivation to dive right into the muck of the earth?
Mm. I think I've always been attracted to that kind of humor. Like wow, his name totally escapes me now, but he came up with stuff like Black Mirror and like Screen Wipe and stuff like that. Um,
The guy that
his name completely,
wrote Black Mirror?
yeah, like he came up with Black Mirror, like he's the creator, but like, it
Okay.
completely escapes me now. But that sort of humor, and that's the kind of thing that I watched on YouTube as well. People like IHE and YMS and like commentary channels that would make sort of informative, but also like um kind of insulting but like funny videos on various topics. And I've always like that's kind of always been what my sense of humor is like as well, just making fun of things that are kind of shit and just going, oh, how shit is this? I can make jokes about it. So I wanted a hobby that was kind of a bit more creative than what I usually do, than which was just playing video games basically.
Mm.
And I was going to get into me and a friend were going to start a channel together. I was going to write and record everything, and he was going to do the editing. Then he ended up not doing anything, so I just did it all myself. And someone told me about this Tide Pod challenge thing, and I looked at it and was like, yeah, you know, like it's so easy to just make fun of that stuff because it's so stupid and dangerous. But also, it feels a little bit valuable to make fun of stuff like that and point out, yeah, this is dangerous. Don't do it. So it served that kind of dual function of I can have a laugh while also informing people about something that you shouldn't do. So that was my incentive to dive into making those kind of videos, and then stuff like raw water and goop just kind of followed on naturally with that because I just like making fun of things that are terrible. It's always been how I am.
Could you please remind everyone as to what Goop is? Because they need to know.
Um, you don't want to know. It's a sex thing. No, it's Goop is Gwyneth Paltrow, the Oscar-winning actress. Although it should have gone to Kate Blanchett, but she's an Oscar-winning actress who was in Marvel. She was in Marvel movies. She played Pepper Potts. She's pretty famous,
Mm.
and she set up a company called Goop to basically promote kind of alternative lifestyle things. So a lot of the things they sell are like overpriced towels and like homeware and just weird stuff. And they have like various diets and they promote like alternative stuff. And they have things like psychic vampire repellent, a lot of pseudoscience stuff that they
Okay.
promote quite irresponsibly, like the jade egg that you supposedly stick inside your vagina and it's good for you, except it's really not because
Mm-hmm.
jade is porous and you're gonna
Mm.
get an infection. It's not good. So they had a whole range of products like this. They also had a solid gold dildo that cost $5,000, and somebody will probably buy it because they're
Well, it is
marketing
gold.
their stuff to rich people who don't know any
Mm.
better
Mm-hmm.
but have the money. People kind of like Gwyneth Paltrow, basically.
Mm.
And I thought this is all stupid, and not only is it stupid, but it's also taking advantage of people, like selling them cures for stuff um like crystals that supposedly cure infertility and all this stuff. And like if a woman is infertile and she's really upset about it, she's gonna
Mm.
might go to some length to try and find any kind of cure. And so if you're selling her this crackpot nonsense, you're taking advantage of her. So for me, it wasn't just look how stupid this is. It was also this is potentially dangerous and just unethical because you're taking advantage of people. So I just thought it was funny to make fun of her and her company. They have scrubbed a few things from their website, but it's not like they're squeaky clean to this day.
Mhm. So was it always a conscious decision for you to start critiquing the issues of the world rather than just bad media, bad movies?
I did like to. I mean, the emphasis was always on entertainment first, but I always managed to, if I could find a way to say something about the world and issues in general, not just oh movie bad whatever, then I like to do that. But sometimes, yeah, if I wanted to just talk about a movie like Hobgoblins or something, then I'll just do that. Um, but if a movie has certain ethical concerns, that would possibly give me more motivation to cover it. One of the probably the biggest examples I imagine would be music, Sia's
Mm.
movie, which was quite that was quite a fun time because there was a whole not just was it a bad movie, but there was a bad production, the whole kinds of ethical issues concerned in that. So it made it feel like it was more worthwhile, like more valuable when I was able to talk about stuff that had a broader impact beyond just,
Mm.
haha, this is funny, let me make fun of it. But the haha, it's funny, let me make fun of it was still at the core of what I was doing. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, it had a quite an iffy portrayal of autism, and people freaked out about it. And that
Yeah.
that was the majority of your video. You were talking about the issues of this portrayal rather than just the
Mm.
lighting is bad in this movie, or this shot
Yeah.
is weird, or that is bad.
Yeah.
Hobgoblins. We've got
Yeah.
Hobgoblins, The Room, Birdemic, Troll
Mm.
2. Are we missing out or missing any underrated, so bad it's good movies that you would recommend?
Mm. Ones I'd recommend. Samurai Cop, 100%.
Hmm.
Go, everybody watching this, go watch Samurai Cop. It is amazing. It's about, I forgot his name. It's about a cop. He's long hair and he's got a samurai sword and he's a samurai, but he's a cop. And he and his partner have this great buddy relationship. And he's basically trying to take down like the Chinese mob or something in LA. I forget the details, but it's definitely a so bad it's good movie that isn't like self-aware. And you can kind of laugh
Hmm.
at it because the problem with a lot of bad movies are intentionally made bad. And when you do that, that for me, that loses all its appeal. So all the asylum stuff or like Sharknado just has no appeal for me. I
Hmm.
personally can't recommend those. But definitely Samurai Cop. Food Fight is definitely another one I'd recommend. That's one of the worst movies ever made. It's a bit of a weird one though because I don't know if you know the story behind it, but it was this animated movie um based around like food products so and food mascots. So at night in the supermarket they come alive. It's kind of like Toy Story, but they made it about product tie-ins. So you had real life products like Mrs. Buttersworth, I think it's called, and like Mr. Clean and
Hmm.
stuff in it. And they were trying to do this cross promotion thing, but it just came across as like blatant product placement, and it's quite egregious. But according to the director of that movie, the assets for the film were like stolen in an act of industrial sabotage. So the film basically was in development hell for ages.
Hmm.
Eventually, it got bought by new people, and then they were like, right, we need to finish this by any means necessary. So they basically just put it together, got a load of stock assets, threw them in, and said, right, here's the movie. And it ended up being one of the worst movies ever made. But it's one of those movies that's so bad that it's exhausting because about halfway through, you're just like, right, you've with every single shot, everything in it is just terrible that it overwhelms you. And so, like, I tried to watch it with my girlfriend who loves bad movies like this. We actually bonded first over the room. Um, and she was like, this is just mind numbing at this point. So buyer beware with that one. Um, Off the top of my head, any others? Pandemic Troll 2.
Is
Mm.
is Troll
Start
One
with Samurai
good?
Cop. Start with Samurai Cop and Food Fight, I think, and then
Okay.
branch out from there. Sorry, what was the question?
You but yeah, people say Troll 2, but I don't really hear anything about Troll. Like, is Troll 1 good? And then they messed up with Troll 2?
No, no.
Okay.
Okay, so right, so they have nothing to do with each other.
Okay.
Right. So the story is these Italian couple who made the movie. Uh, they made it, and then by the way, trolls aren't even in the movie. They're goblins. They're not trolls. But they decided to call it Troll 2 because there was a movie called Troll, and they thought that they could market the movie better if they just named it Troll 2
Mm.
and marketed it as a sequel, even though it wasn't. So they has nothing to do with each other. You never hear about the original movie because it's just a whatever generic movie. Um, but that was why it was called Troll 2, even though there aren't trolls in it.
Okay, well,
That's a good one though. That's definitely worth watching. Very stupid.
You mentioned in your commentary video of your video of Tommy Wiseau's Neighbors that you said
Oh
that
yes.
you enjoy The Room more than Neighbors because The Room was trying to be serious and failed,
Mm,
and it's difficult to create the circumstances in which a so bad it's good movie is
mm,
created. So, what are
mm.
the circumstances in which a so bad it's good movie is created?
Well, interesting. It's an interesting question, but you're totally right. Awareness, really.
Mm,
Self-awareness, I think, is the most important one. If they are self-aware as to what they are doing and how bad they are, that immediately kills it because they're going to know, oh, this is bad, but then they're trying. Whereas they're trying to make it bad. Whereas it's the lack of awareness of your actual skill level and how things are turning out. The incompetence, of course, is a big one, but not aware that they're incompetent. So in their mind, they're doing a good job and they're trying to make something good. But it's the failure of that, the lack of awareness, the incompetence that makes it funny. You can laugh at it. When someone is consciously trying to make something that is bad and go, haha, look at this, it's so bad. You just kind of go, nah, nah, cool, you were trying that, weren't you? It's like watching someone slip and fall down the stairs versus watching somebody throw themselves down the stairs and then go, hey everybody, I threw myself
mm.
down the stairs, laugh. So, you know. So yeah,
I,
definitely self-awareness and incompetence are the two big ones, I think.
I'm reminded of Neil Breen, who sort of has
Yeah.
superseded Tommy Wiseau as
Mm,
the next Tommy Wiseau. And what I don't know any of his movies, but I know the name
mm,
and that he's sort of the new Tommy Wiseau.
yeah.
Any thoughts on him, Neil Breen?
So yeah, so Neil Breen's an interesting one. Definitely watch Fateful Findings if you can. That one's great. Twisted Pair's also pretty good. A lot of his movies are kind of the same. He goes on this weird like messianic fantasy that he has where he's kind of like a Jesus Christ figure saving the world from like
Mm.
corrupt governments and like the Illuminati and stuff. It's very, very odd. Um, but so the thing with Tommy Wiseau is he started off convinced of his own ability, and obviously he didn't have any, but he wasn't aware, you see, and that's why the room A ended up so bad, but also why it's so bad it's good is because he was trying, but the incompetence shows through. Whereas at a certain, so initially he was really upset that people laughed at the movie and they enjoyed it because it was bad. He really couldn't accept that. He hated it. After a while, he did start to embrace that, and now he's just cool with it. He bigs it up. Like I went to see the room at a screening in London, and he was there, and he was just doing the bullshit, like
Mm.
bantering with the crowd. Like people would ask him the most BS questions, and he'd give them nonsense answers. He was playing into it.
Mm.
So I got to meet him there. Um, so whenever Tommy Wiseau tries to produce something now, it's much more self-aware. So like the neighbors, for example, I think I believe. I mean, actually, what? I shouldn't say it on an interview, but basically, I feel like Tommy Wiseau was taken advantage of by certain people in the creation of that because they were like, "Oh yeah, we'll get in Tommy Wiseau, we'll make a TV series, and we can all laugh at him and stuff." But because it was more consciously trying to be bad, it just leaves a bad taste in your mouth because it's just like, okay, you're trying now, it's not funny. Whereas Neil Breen has not reached that level of self-awareness yet.
Mm.
Like he is still, I believe, because he seems pretty private. He doesn't really do interviews much, but he seems to be convinced of his own talents and his own genius. So if you watch his movies, they are kind of similar to each other. They have the same kind of tropes, but every single time that he plays it, he comes across with that same level of kind of sincerity. And I genuinely believe that he believes he's making good movies.
Mm.
That's the core difference between what Neil Breen is still doing and what Tommy Wiseau is still doing. Because Tommy Wiseau is just making bad movies now, whereas Neil Breen thinks he's making great movies, but he's not. But they're still charming because he really believes it, and it doesn't leave that unintentional bad taste in your mouth, as it were.
What's the one where he finds his friend on like the garage floor and he's like, "Oh my God, you
Oh,
committed suicide. I
that's
cannot
fateful
believe."
findings. Yeah.
Okay,
Oh, I can't believe you committed suicide. How
I'll
could
check
you
that
have
one
done
out.
this? How could you have committed suicide?
Yeah.
That's fateful findings. That's of all of his movies, that's the one I enjoyed the most.
Okay. All right.
So
Fair for
I would
findings.
give that a watch if you can.
Let's get back to you. Enough of Neil Breen and Tom Wiseau. I'll interview them later. You
Yeah.
were originally depicted, and you sometimes depict yourself here and there as a
Yeah.
dog in a suit, but then eventually you
Hmm.
just showed your face. And this seems to
Mm.
be a common trend where people use avatars of a non-human head on a
Yeah.
humanoid suit body, and then they just show themselves. Why do you think so many people have this pattern where they use an
Mm.
avatar of non-human head on a human body and then just show their face?
Well, first, I think initially it's the anonymity aspect of it. People don't like showing themselves on camera, especially if they're saying, excuse me, if especially if they're not making the most wholesome, like wholesome content. They're worried about putting their own faces out there because of possible getting recognized or repercussions or whatnot, or they just don't like being on camera. A lot of people don't like being on camera. They don't want to deal with it. They don't want to put themselves out there like that. And some people just can't be asked for cameras, frankly. there's
Mhm.
there's a number of reasons for it. And also the animated avatar stuff. It depends what they're doing. Like sometimes it's just they use a human, which is fine. But some people like me, for example, I use the dog. And I just thought it was more interesting. And it's just more interesting than another sort of, you know, geeky guy with a beard and glasses on camera with a
Mm,
hat. Just thought it was
yeah.
more. But then over time, it's kind of by accident actually. In my 1,000 subscriber Q&A, I promised I'd do a face reveal if I got to 100k subs, which I thought, oh, whatever, that's years away. That's not gonna happen. And then of course my channel blew up at exactly that time, and then I got to 100k subs like 2 months later. So I was like, oh, okay, I have to do it now. So I did it. And then I decided to put my face in the videos more often as kind of a challenge for myself to figure out how cameras work,
Mm,
basically, and just to change up the formula a bit. And now I mostly do the face cam with occasional dog in it as well. And so I partly the reason as well is I think that animated avatars used to be quite a big thing back in like 2016, like earlier. I'd say middle age of YouTube, like
mm,
the late golden age, as it were, before demonetization stuff came in. Animated avatars used to be a fairly big thing around 2016, 2017, 2018. And then they kind of got phased out because they became a bit of a meme.
mm.
Like people just got, oh, it's everybody gangster until the animated avatar crosses his arms, that sort of
Yeah,
meme.
yeah, yeah.
So it's not that I don't personally I don't have a problem with people using them. Use them myself, but I decided like I wanted to place a bit less emphasis on it and more on me a bit because I became a bit more comfortable being on camera. And some other
Mm,
people feel the same way. Like after a while, they're like, yeah, fuck it, I'll put myself out there. Why not? But it's definitely a journey that a lot of people go through. I have noticed, and some people just will never do that at all. They'll always use an icon, because of privacy reasons, and fair play to them,
mm.
I say.
Yeah, your channel really blew up when you talked about the 2018 movie Sierra
Mm.
Burgess is a Big Loser. You
Yeah,
you faced quite a backlash about mocking stupid fat people. So, how
yeah,
did it
yeah.
feel being on the receiving end of such slings and arrows?
Mm. Well, it's interesting because it's something I thought about fairly recently. Those comments were always they were a minority, vocal small minority, but they were in the comments when I read them, and I was like, okay, whatever. Um, for me personally, I wasn't making fun of people thought I was making fun of the actress for being fat. I was like, no, I wasn't. I was making fun of first of all the fictional character, different thing, but also the reason I thought it was fair game was that this character basically uses her weight, her being overweight and not particularly good looking. She uses that as an excuse to be a vile person and like vile to other people and use and manipulate other people and just be a piece of shit. So I didn't consider anything wrong with mocking them for that thing because they were using it as an excuse you know, to be an asshole,
Mm.
basically. So I probably wouldn't make some of those jokes today if I made the video today. But I also don't really look back on that video and go, yeah, I did something really wrong that I need to apologize for. And I think a lot of people in the comments did miss the point that I was making. But the problem is you can't explain yourself. You can't explain every joke that you make in a video, and you can't explain yourself to every person that's going to take issue with the joke that you make. You just can't do it. You've just got to do the best that you can with your sort of current mindset, I suppose. Like, don't necessarily go out of your way to offend people, but like, there's always somebody that's going to take issue with it. So I honestly didn't worry about it too much.
And she wasn't even that unattractive. She was sort of
No,
Hollywood unattractive, where
no,
she's a little bit overweight, I guess, but she has hair. Her face
yeah.
is symmetrical. She doesn't have any skin problems. She's TV ugly, not real
Yeah,
life
she's
ugly.
TV ugly. Yeah, and
Mm-hmm.
she doesn't do anything with it. That's the thing. She doesn't make that was another point I think I made in the video was that she doesn't do anything to make herself more attractive. But then she complains about not being found attractive. And I'm not saying she doesn't have to do anything. She doesn't have to do. Women don't have to do anything. They don't have to make themselves look more attractive or whatever to anybody. That's it's their life. But it felt kind of like hypocrite. It felt kind of hypocritical and a bit cheap for her to be like, "Oh yeah, nobody likes me. Boys don't like me." It's like, well, what do you do? You know,
Mm.
what are you doing about that? Nothing. You just want to moan about it. Like, sorry. And like, and I also had about 100 subscribers or 150 subs at the time I made that video, so I wasn't really that worried about backlash. So I
Mm.
have to say I didn't even think about it at the time.
Mm. Is there anything that you would recommend an upcoming YouTuber to have to deal with
Mm.
negative criticism
Mm.
other than thick skin?
Um, yeah, thick skin is the thing I would say. Um, if you don't, I mean, if you don't have a thick skin, like you shouldn't, don't do this because people are just, you might get 99% of comments that are great or just okay, and then you get 1% of people that are just cunts and just ruin your entire day. Um, so if you can't deal with that, you kind of need to be able to deal with it in order to do this. So you need to get used to it early. Um, I would say have a good sense of humor as well. Definitely have a good sense of humor about yourself and about what you're doing. Don't take like don't take negative criticism too closely to heart because then you'll just shut down and not be able to do anything. Or worse, you'll end up lashing out at people that criticize you or call you names or whatever, and then you'll just make yourself even worse. Because the one thing you definitely should not do. Oh, sorry, I'm getting really hot. The one thing you definitely should not do, uh, if you're an online personality, is get really like upset and mad and let people who make the nasty comments know that they got to you because then they win, and you just invite more of it. They can smell it like sharks smell blood in the water. Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
You don't want to go down that route because you'll just make it worse and worse. Whereas if you have a good sense of humor about it, if you shrug it off and just go, yeah, you know, or like somebody types like, "Oh, you're fat," or "You look like Ryan Johnson," or whatever. Like, yeah, cool. He's my long lost dad. What do you want? Yeah. If you play it off like that, most of them will just go away, leave you alone. They'll find somebody else to bully, and then you'll also accumulate fans that see that you've got that sense of humor about yourself and go, "Ah, he's pretty cool." You know, so definitely a sense of humor about yourself and about your content is important.
Mm. I have a personal theory as to why
Mm.
people, audiences, are so drawn to negative critiques of movies. And
Yeah.
it's because I think that our monkey brains aren't able to completely separate real life from fiction. So when you see
Mm.
a fictional person doing something stupid or bad, we feel good about ourselves in the same way that someone might watch
Mm.
Funniest Home Videos or Jersey Shore, and they think to themselves, "Well, I'm not like them, therefore I'm a
Yeah.
good person." Do you have any idea why people are so drawn to critiques of fictional media?
Mm. Well, there is a little bit of that. I think that's more the case with like car crash TV or videos of people falling down the stairs or whatever. People watch that stuff and they go, or like what do you call them? Reality shows and stuff. And people
Mm,
watch them and go, "Oh, glad that's not me."
mm,
Films, there is that to a certain extent, but I don't know how much people aren't able to separate reality from fiction because they know that stuff on screen is, well, most of the time. I hope they would know that it's not real. Um, I think it's more. Oh, it is funny, but I feel like when you're watching a movie and you're seeing somebody fail, it's almost like a substitute for watching a real person fail, and you get that same kind of
mm,
feeling out of it without having to feel bad because you know it's not real.
mm.
In a
Like
sense,
getting scared by a horror movie, even though you know that it's not real.
yeah, even though you know it's not real, you get
Mm,
that same kind of feeling.
mhm,
In terms of critiques of bad stuff, I think, well, first of all, um, there is far more capacity for humor, I found, when you're talking about something bad, when you're being insulting or ripping on something, than something positive. Like for me personally, I get 100 times more jokes out of a bad thing than I would out of a good thing, which is why, partly why I focus on that stuff. and so it's more entertaining generally for an audience because there's more potential for humor in it. But when it comes to critiques of bad like media on YouTube, a big reason why people watch them is because they've watched it or they've heard of it and they've heard it's bad, but they want to know why without actually watching the thing itself. So it's kind of like a substitute. Like this reviewer watched it and is telling you their thoughts, instead of you going and watching it and you don't waste your time, you don't give them airtime. But also a big part of it is they've watched this thing and they know it's bad, but they can't quite put their finger on why it's bad. So they want somebody to basically explain or give them reasons to confirm why it's bad. So they watch it for validation. Effectively, they watch it to have their opinions validated by somebody. That's a fair chunk of people that watch negative critiques. But there's nothing inherently wrong with it. That's just how it is.
Yeah, I think that's why I watch stuff like that. It's not because I
Yeah.
want to be pushed towards or pushed away seeing a good or a bad movie. I just like to hear other people's opinions and see how they match up with
Mm.
whatever I think.
Well, quick story about that actually. Though, how I met my girlfriend in the first place was that she watched Disenchantment and didn't like it. She thought it was bad.
That
And
Matt Groening Simpsons
the
Futurama next
yeah, the Matt
cartoon
Groening
thing.
medieval one,
Mm,
the on Netflix,
mhm.
and but she couldn't quite kind of work out exactly why. So she went and watched some videos. One of them was mine, where I was talking about why I didn't like it, why I didn't think it was funny. And then she was like, "Oh, this guy's really smart and everything." Then got in touch with me, and then we went from there. That's kind of how it started. So we bonded. We
Huh.
bonded over that exact experience. Yeah.
So she like sent you had I mean you can't message people on
Well, that's
YouTube
fair.
anymore.
She
She emailed you and said, "Hi, I like your stuff."
she followed me on Instagram actually.
Mm,
She followed me on Instagram actually, and I followed her back because she had an interesting page. She was into like metal and like vintage pinup stuff. And then she sent me a message saying, "Hey, I loved the video," and then we started talking about The Room actually,
mm.
funnily enough, and how much we love it, and then we just talked about bad movies in general. It's quite a good first conversation,
Mm.
And then from that first conversation, I kind of went, "Okay, hmm." You know what I
She
mean
seems okay.
when you have that first vibe with
Hmm.
somebody. So
Hmm.
that was pretty cool.
So
But
yeah,
oh no, but I was just going to say, yeah, we bonded over that exact experience of her watching one of my videos in order to kind of validate her feelings about why the show was bad or why she didn't like it.
since it is long distance, do you ever set
Mm,
out like movie dates where you watch a bad movie while
mm.
streaming video in together?
Yeah, we do. We communicate over Discord or phone,
Mm.
like WhatsApp, and we watch movies together. We watch new stuff that's come out or old stuff. We have a whole list of stuff we're trying to get through. But usually, if I'm making a video on something, we'll watch it together. Occasionally, she has refused to do that because it's been so bad.
Mm.
Um, but usually, she'll watch something with me and kind of offer her own kind of observations and insights. It's quite valuable. But yeah, we do. We've kind of watched bad movies together. We've watched a lot of them now.
Mm. Well, good thing that you
And
were
that's what you
famous.
have to do when you're long distance.
Right, of course. You monetizing your YouTube career now? Because I mean, am I correct in saying that making videos, being online, that
Mm.
is now your full-time job?
Yeah, yeah, it is. Has been for a while.
So how did you go about monetizing your work and turning it into a YouTubey
Mm.
business?
Um, well, I mean, I just joined the partner program when I had enough views. So like when you get it's like over 1,000 subs, you need a certain amount of watch hours, then you're eligible to join the partner program, which means you can run ads on your videos. And when I blew up quite quickly within the space of about a month, and when I joined, and then by the time I'd approved, I'd missed out on about 1 million views worth of ad revenue, which was quite annoying. But what can you do? And then yeah, you just run ads on there. And then I started a Patreon the following year. I've had merch. Took me a while to get around to getting merch, but the last year I revamped my merch, moved it to a new site, new designs, that kind of thing. And then yeah, just been kind of running ads on videos really. I try not to run too many because it can be kind of obnoxious. But it's been okay. Been okay for me so far, I'll say.
Advertisers, when they want you to advertise their stuff, NordVPN, Filmora,
Hmm.
Ridge Wallet, Raycon. Let's just look behind the curtain for a little bit. How do these
Hmm.
companies even contact you and ask you to talk about their stuff?
It depends. Sometimes they will literally just email you directly and say, "Hey, do you want to? We want to sponsor on your channel." Um, that's become a little bit less popular for legitimate sponsors now because there's a lot of it's become quite a common scam. Like a lot of scam sponsors or dodgy products will email you directly and want to do a sponsorship. And there's a thing recently actually, people impersonating legitimate sponsors like NordVPN will send you an email that looks like it's from NordVPN using the same template, same logos, everything. They'll send you a link, hey, download NordVPN here. Then you download it, and then they steal your Google like browser cache, your browser session,
Mm.
and then they use it to hack your YouTube channel and use it to promote Bitcoin. So it's a little bit less popular for genuine sponsors to do that now, but it does still happen. So sometimes they'll reach out directly. A lot of the time it's through agencies. So there are agencies that work to basically find sponsors, find companies, and then they go out and find creators to basically sponsor. So they're like middlemen,
Mm.
essentially, where they go, right, we've got a bunch of creators or we've got a bunch of sponsors already on board. We just need to find people to fill them, and they try and basically fill gaps. So I've worked with a few agencies in the past, and what they do is okay, they take a cut of it, and then they basically match you up with sponsors and stuff. And they go, hey, do you want to? What they'll say is they'll talk to sponsors. Hey, do you want to sponsor this guy? And if they say yes, they'll go, oh, hey, do you want to be sponsored by these guys? And then you don't have to accept anything. But if you do, then they sort of set it up. They send you everything. So in that circumstance, you don't deal with the company directly. It's through that intermediary. So they will, if you have any questions or queries, you will then go to the company. Sometimes, though, even working through agencies, the company has been more directly involved. Like, for example, when I did Audible a few years ago, even though it was through an agency that got me that ad, I still ended up speaking to somebody that worked for Audible in terms of in terms of what they wanted, like from the ad, their requirements, their expectations, that kind of thing. So it's a bit of both. Sometimes it's they directly just contact you, and sometimes it's through an agency. Sometimes agencies will contact you and go, "Hey, do you want to work with us?" I don't accept those anymore. There's a like two that I work with, and then I occasionally take individual sponsorships on a ad hoc basis.
I've seen you talk about Raycon, the wireless
Yeah,
earbuds, and there's a video where you film yourself running, and you'll go, I'm running now, and I've got my
yeah.
Raycons on, and I haven't fallen out." And I'm thinking to myself, I'm not sure if they told you to run, or I mean, how much creative control do you have
So
over how you talk
yeah,
about the stuff?
so it's a bit of that you do get a bit of leeway. It depends on the sponsor. Some sponsors are really chill and will let you do basically anything as long as you still promote the product and put the link in and all that stuff. So like Ridge Wallet are really chill. They'll just let you do basically anything. And then on the other end, on the sort of other extreme, you've got mobile games. Mobile games are very strict.
Raid Shadow Legends.
Raid Shadow Legends.
Yeah.
There's a reason why every Raid Shadow Legends ad in an ad cycle sounds exactly the same.
Mhm.
It's because they give you the script. They say you have to say this, this, and this. You have to do this. That's why they all sound the same. And that's one reason I stopped doing those ads is because well, it just feels fake, and it's not sincere, and it doesn't give you that creative freedom that I think you really need to make an ad really special. Like some people make it work. Like Internet Historians Raid Shadow Legends ads are like legendarily like good. But it's very rare. There's a reason why most of them feel the same. Raycon is and other sponsors like Nord are kind of somewhere in the middle. So they have a few things they want you to say, or they give you sort of, hey, here's a list of things. Can you say at least three or four of them or something? And then make sure you put your link in the description and that lot. They always want you to do that. But usually as long as you say a few things from their required bullet points, you kind of have freedom to do whatever you want. So yeah, there are the talking points. You do have to mention some of them. But I have also had a fair amount of leeway in terms of the concept of the ad I can run and how many jokes I can make. I'm not allowed to make too many jokes at the expense of the product, which is kind of annoying, but that's how it is. Some of them have it, some of the sponsors have a sense of humor about it, but a lot of them are like, yeah, I would rather you didn't do that.
I guess
Um,
that that means that the advertisers, they look at the video that you made. Like
yeah,
You couldn't go
Yeah, yeah,
Ridge Wallet. It's really good. It's so
yeah.
great. Because then they'd
So
see that.
what they'll do is they will ask you to make basically a preview. They ask you to basically make the ad, then send it to them a few days before the whole video is going to go live,
Mhm.
so they can approve it. And just so you're not making a video that's like you're wiping your ass with a product or whatever, they have to still approve it like any ad campaign would. Uh, and then if they need changes, then you need to make them, whatever. But usually they're chill if you've done what they wanted. But it's they do have to approve it. You can't just do whatever you want. As funny as that would be, but then otherwise you'd end up with everybody just shitting all over the product because it's funny, but
Mhm.
then it not being a good advert, if that makes sense.
Mhm. Yeah, as long as it's entertaining, as long as it sells the
Yeah.
product.
Well, that's my opinion. As long as it sells the product and as long as it makes people laugh, that's a good thing.
Mhm.
But some companies don't really seem to understand that. They're more interested in like the by the numbers marketing campaign. Like
Yeah.
again, as I was saying, Raid is kind of one of the examples of this, but other mobile games are kind of like this, where they give you a brief and they make you do, so many things that then all the ads kind of feel
Mhm.
formulaic. And I don't, I think they're mistaken in that approach because one of the reasons that people are attracted to YouTube content in the first place and YouTubers is that it seems more authentic, more down to earth, more relatable. And so when nobody likes being sold stuff, no one likes ads. So when you're just doing what is obviously an ad read, it's just like, oh, whatever, mate,
Mhm.
you know. So I've done them in the past, but I'm kind of moved away from that sort of thing now because I want my ads to be a bit different and a bit more
Mhm.
authentic. So the question about the running actually, um, they don't tell me to run. I was doing that anyway, and that is true. I've worn these when I go running, and they never fall out. That is true. I don't lie about stuff like that. Um, but what they want you to do is they say, "Oh, can you talk about how you incorporate them into your daily life, like an activity that you do, or you listen to an audiobook, or you wear them while you're doing chores or whatever? Just talk about how useful they've been to you personally." So that's my example. Is I take them out running. So it just makes sense.
I myself got very, very sick of seeing all the Raid Shadow Legends ads out there. And then this is maybe a couple of years ago, actually, I
Yeah.
saw someone on Twitter, I think, share their or someone else's email, or it was the amount of money that they were offered to talk
Yeah.
about Raid Shadow Legends. And I went,
Yeah.
whoa, no wonder so many
Yes.
people are doing it. I
Yeah.
I as
Yeah.
moral as I am, I
We'd
would
all
be
do
very
it.
tempted. Yeah. Yeah, I
We'd
would
all
do
do
it.
it.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. Say what you want. Say what you want about Raid and how annoying their ads are, but they
Mhm.
do pay well and
Mhm.
they pay very quickly.
Yeah.
Like some sponsors, I've had to wait months for the money. It's ridiculous. But Raid do the ad and then like 2 days later, it's in my PayPal account. Just and the whole amount. And they do offer it like I think it was Saber Sparks said he was offered something like 70 grand or something to do $70,000 to do a Raid Shadow Legends ad. There's so much money.
Mm.
And that's why people do them. And say what you want about Raid and other
Mm.
mobile games and stuff. The way that YouTube can be with videos being demonetized and stuff, like they do keep YouTubers in the black.
Mm.
Like certain YouTubers, for example, like Count Dankula, like a lot of his videos get demonetized, but he does like mobile game sponsorships quite regularly, so it's look quite lucrative for him, and it means that he can make the content he wants to make without fear that my ad revenue is going to be in the toilet this month or whatever. So it does sponsors, it can be a little annoying, but it means that you have a bit more freedom to make the content you want to make. Because very rarely, by the way, will sponsors actually care about the video that the ad is put in. They won't even ask what it is. So you could theoretically you could put it in some really disgusting, um, awful video, but well, okay, technically some of the contracts they'll say, hey, we don't want any objectionable content within a few minutes of the ad or whatever. So you can't just put it to a compilation of like furry porn or something and just put the ad in it. Um, but yeah, they don't usually ask what you're making, which is again, it gives you that kind of freedom to be like, okay, well, I'm going to make a video on some edgy movie or whatever, some edgy topic, and I'm not going to worry about the demonetization because I've got this guaranteed sponsor revenue that I can just kind of go cool, you know. So yeah, it can be a little annoying for the viewer, I do admit, but it's generally a good thing, I would say.
Yeah. Keeps the YouTubers afloat when they're
Mm.
when YouTube is screwing them over. It's
Yeah,
like, yeah.
yeah.
Well, the last question I have to ask is, of course,
Hmm.
your transition through your online life when you graduated in around about 2017. You got your master's degree in the arts,
Mm.
and then you apparently worked in hospitality, and now you're doing
Yeah,
YouTube. Could
yeah,
you talk us through the process of how you were studying, and then you were working, and then you left your real
yeah.
job to do YouTube stuff?
Yeah, so I ended up so I did a master's degree in medieval history because I was kind of thinking of getting into academia or at least doing a history degree again, and I wanted to specialize a bit more. So I did that. And I was working at my job that I was working at before. I was in a restaurant, and I kept working at that kind of at the weekends. So Monday to Thursday, I was studying and doing this master's, and then Friday to Saturday, I was working in this restaurant, like doing the long weekend shifts. That was fun, but it, paid my way through it, so I didn't have to take loans, which was nice. Then graduated. I ended up getting a job in that company's head office actually as a trainer, which was great, and it suited me very well. But it also kind of didn't, and it wasn't the right time. So I ended up leaving that job, going back to the restaurant, and then I ended up leaving that restaurant and going to another one. Stayed there for a while. Went to work in a pub. Still not really sure what I want to do with anything. So that the January of 2018, I ended up making the channel. I was making videos on the side. I ended up just being unemployed for a while because I wanted to focus on the channel, which in retrospect was a little bit silly because I wasn't doing anything. I was just making videos. And that anybody will tell you that early period on YouTube, it's so hard to get like any views and any subscribers. So I don't know what I was thinking, but I did it for about 9 months or so. And then I was like, okay, this isn't going anywhere. I might as well just try and get a job. Worked in a pub while I kept making videos. And then while I was at the pub for a few months. Then I had the plot holes video and the Sierra Burgess video come out, I made, and the momentum built, and then I kind of took off. And I said to myself, I would go full time on YouTube when I reached 100,000 subs, which actually happened in December. But I decided to wait a bit longer, get some more money saved up, and then leave that job. So in the April of 2019 is when I went full time,
Hmm.
which is great. So I don't have to deal with customers anymore, which is fantastic. Anybody who works in customer service, anybody who works in hospitality will know that dealing with customers can be a real um, challenge. I want to
Yeah,
say,
yeah. Now you have to deal with faceless, anonymous trolls telling you that you're
yeah.
being mean about fat people.
Well, what's funny about the difference is customers can like complain and get you fired and stuff. But what's a random online person complains, I just tell them to piss off,
Mm.
like mute them. It's great because
Mhm.
I've got that freedom to. Somebody doesn't like me or my content, great, piss off, go watch something else.
Perfect.
And that's a very valuable freedom that you don't get in a lot of jobs. It's something I definitely appreciate.
Back
Yeah, I've been
in
chugging along ever since, really.
back in YouTube's infancy, 100,000 subscribers was like 10 million by
Huge, yeah,
today's inflation standards.
yeah,
I'm not sure how. I'm just kind of surprised, honestly, that 100,000 subscribers would be enough to survive on. I thought, like, if you hit maybe 500,000 to a million, that would be enough.
yeah.
But all right,
Depends
good.
on the individual. Like, depends on their life, their circumstances. I've been quite fortunate in mine.
Mm,
And it's less to do with the subscriber count than it is to do with like ad revenue or other source of revenue that you've got coming in. Um, Really, the sub count that ultimately doesn't really matter that much. It's just like an ego thing. Or you need, well, after 100,000, you get your plaque, for example.
mm.
And you can
Have you
say
got
to,
yours hanging up somewhere?
I do have my
Nice.
my plaque just behind there.
Very nice.
It's been in the background in a lot of videos. If nothing else, I get to keep that, so that's cool.
Mhm.
Um, oh, I've lost my train of thought. God damn it! No, subs don't really matter as much as people think they do. It's more the view counts,
Mhm.
really. Because view counts are much more closely correlated with ad revenue, and also it's what um sponsors will look at when
Mhm.
they look at sort of the last 10 videos or whatever and say, right, on average, how many views do they get? And then that determines how much money they're willing to give you because it's usually a projection. So they say, right, we expect you'll get 200,000, so we'll pay you this much.
Mhm.
And then if you do get more than that, they don't pay you more. Which
Yeah,
well,
it
what can you do?
it all just comes down to how many ads you accept from Raid Shadow
It
Legends.
does. Yeah, they seem to not give a shit about your view count. They don't. They literally don't care. They're just like, hey, do you want to do an ad? Right, here's money.
Mm, that seems
And I guess it works
mm,
for them, but not my kind of thing
yeah.
anymore.
Well, it's everywhere now. It's just like I haven't bought it, so it hasn't worked on me. It's just an
Yeah,
invisible ad, a thing to get through
yeah.
the video.
Just like right, this is the price for content.
Yeah, yeah.
Effectively, it's just like
Hmm.
yeah, think of it as the price for content.
Hmm.
For people that aren't paying. Obviously, if you are paying for YouTube Premium stuff, obviously, then you've also had to sit through the ad, which sucks. Um, but my mentality has always been just, yeah, if you just skip through it, no one
Yeah.
cares if you skip through that. No one cares if you skip through the ads. Just do
Mm.
it.
Yeah. Like,
I got
yeah.
I got my money. Just skip through the ads. If it makes the viewing experience better for you.
Yeah, it's better than the good old days when you'd watch TV and the ads would come on and you would just stand up and walk out of the room and go eat a biscuit for like three
Yeah,
minutes and then come back and watch some more Simpsons.
yeah, exactly.
Next question and last
Yep.
question. I lied before. This is the actual last
This is
question.
the
It
last
is it
question.
is the last
Gotcha.
question that I
I'll
ask
hold you
at
to
the
that.
end of this thing. Okay, well,
Mhm.
if your answer is interesting, maybe I'll have some follow-up questions. All right,
We
don't be
shall see.
interesting, and this will
Okay.
be the last question. All right, I'll I'll
Okay.
I'll, I'll hold you to that. Last question is, of course, why are stories important?
Hmm. Why are stories important? I mean, that's a very complex question, really. Um, they're important because they do a lot for us. Like, there's the entertainment value. First of all, it's an entertainment value that and no other organism on this planet has. It's a very human activity, I think, and it appeals to the best aspects of ourselves: storytelling, the creativity, the the reflection of emotion, um the experience of things that you're not directly experiencing, I guess, the exploration of philosophies. It can be a very satisfying experience. It can be very cathartic. It fulfills a lot of our emotional needs and can just make our evenings entertaining and stave off boredom. But they also can convey good messages. I think the inspirational messages or the cautionary tales, those have always played a really important role in human civilization. Like every human society you can ever think of has had stories, and stories that have played a particular role in their culture and their history, their mythology, like communicating their truths as they understand it and the lessons that they want to impart to their future generations. Um, Rather than just directly telling people, okay, don't steal or whatever, you can make a story out of it, and it's just far more entertaining, it's far more evocative, and far more memorable, and it just makes life much more interesting. I think that's why stories serve so many functions. Life would be so much more dull and boring and less comprehensible, I think, without stories.
CJ from Cynical Reviews, thank you so much for coming on to One Story Building.
And you're very welcome. Thanks for having me.